Sacramento. Welcome to Soapbox Sacramento. I'm Laura Rubalcaba, your host for tonight. I'd like to invite you to watch us next week. We're going to have Assemblymember Kevin McCarthy on. He's going to be talking about his legislative agenda, his priorities going forward, mainly focusing on education, housing, and wages. Another thing I want to alert you to is Proposition 49. This is something that was supposed to go on the ballot in 2014. It's the Overturned Citizens United Act. It's only an advisory measure, but this is a good way to build national momentum. And it was struck by the California State Supreme Court in a heinous decision that I actually protested and was arrested on. I've been arrested twice on this issue. I feel so strongly about getting money out of politics. So the Supreme Court threw that off the ballot in 2014, and then they went back and looked at it and said, well, that was stupid and ridiculous. And they had a 6-to-1 decision that that was a wrong thing to do. And yet, it is not designated to go on the ballot in 2016. So everyone, you should call the Secretary of State office. Google it, look up the phone number. I thought I'd have the number, but my phone's busy keeping track of time, so I don't have that. But you need to go in the next 5 days, immediately, and tell them that Prop 49 needs to be restored to the ballot. It is crazy that people were arrested, that the legislature put this on the ballot. The Supreme Court struck it off, and now they're going to win, that it's not going to go on the ballot at all. That's unacceptable. I urge you, Secretary of State website, call them, contact them in the next 5 days, immediately, and tell them that's a travesty. Finally, the last announcement I want to make regards something very important here in the city, and that is the upcoming rates to utility rates, the upcoming hikes to utility rates. January 25th, the Utilities Commission is going to be meeting at 5:30 at City Hall in City Council chambers. This is not the City Council, this is the Commission. You need to get in the front end of this. They're looking at raising utility rates in the city of Sacramento for all residents by 9, 10, and 16% each year for 4 years. Those are astounding raises. And for people on fixed incomes, they're simply unconscionable. I feel that the city of Sacramento needs to provide funds for people on fixed income to help with this. So once again, that's January 25th, 5:30 at City Hall. Tonight, my guests are going to be talking about homelessness, a really big issue that has been all over our news waves. But before we get to that, I'd like to thank our sponsors. We wouldn't be here without them and the wonderful people who volunteer on our crew every week. Our sponsors are Pieces Pizza between M and N on 21st Street, and also Humor Times, James Israel's publication that gives us a chance to laugh a little bit between our bouts of advocacy. So thank you very much for our sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. And thank you so much for our volunteers. So tonight we're here with Frank Topping, who is a Mental Health Services Act Steering Committee member who does a lot of work, and also we are here with Steve Waters. So I'm going to toss the ball to you, Frank, to get us started. Introduce yourself, introduce our other guest, and let's get going.
Thank you, Laura. My name is Frank Topping. I'm a member of the Sacramento County Mental Health Services Act Steering Committee and a past member of the Sacramento County Mental Health Board, secretary for 6 years. The Human Services Coordinating Council and the Disability Advisory Commission. It's my passion to make sure that we have adequate services for our people in Sacramento County who are heavily impacted by serious mental illness, particularly our homeless and our older adults, our teens, transitional age youth, and those with disabilities.
And the AB 109.
And the AB 109 are a particularly difficult population that I believe a program that's modeled after Olympia, Washington's Quixote Village proposed by Professor Steve Waters here for Sacramento County would be marvelous in going ahead and facilitating. What I'd like to do is to give you a brief overview of what the Mental Health Services Act is and how it can help. The MHSA is better known as Prop 63, or sometimes called millionaire's tax. It was enacted by the voters in 2004 and put into effect in 2005. This was to answer the problem of people that were thrown out of mental health hospitals statewide that were all of a sudden finding themselves on the street when Governor Reagan shut the hospitals down, except for the giants like Napa State. You had people on every street corner pointing to the sky, yelling and arguing to themselves, this type of thing. There was supposed to be, there was a promise of community supports that would be developed. Well, this never happened. The voters decided that the best answer to this would be a tax of 1% on all personal income in excess of $1 million. And that's what the Mental Health Services Act is. Yes, Prop 63.
And what was the date of that?
2004.
Oh. Okay.
And that was authored by then Assemblyman Steinberg, who had authored the original AB 34, which was a fantastic program. Actually, I was the first client ever by Turning Point Homeless Intervention Program for AB 34. And that was improved in the year 2000 by AB 2034, and then replaced by the Mental Health Services
I don't know
Act.
how you keep all the numbers straight.
It's not easy, but I'm just trying to, as a retired
So these mental
person,
health
keep
services
my
numbers are,
brain active.
Steinberg, who authored that, is on a move. We have recent articles in the Bee. We have recent moves by the state. Let's introduce our other guests and let's get talking.
I'd like to introduce Professor Steve Waters, and particular, we have past Senate President Darrell Steinberg has got a brand new proposal to leverage 7%, a very small amount of these Mental Health Services Act funds, to go ahead and achieve $2.1 billion per year for housing, particularly for our homeless with serious mental illness. Steve, you got a wonderful proposal to go ahead and achieve that. How about telling us about it?
Thank you, Frank. First, let me say that I'm here not representing Los Rios Community Colleges, but representing First Step Communities, which is a local 501c3 nonprofit that has a proposal and has been working very closely with the city and talking with the County Board of Supervisors. What we are proposing is to lease a piece of publicly owned property, and on that property we would build what I call an interim community, a first step community, as our name implies. And we would have a sort of at the heart of the community, a community center building which would have full facilities for the occupants. In other words, it would have restrooms, showers, laundries, community kitchens, meeting rooms, and a medical clinic. WellSpace Health is partnering with us and will put in a medical clinic that would provide primary medical care to all of our residents, as well as mental health counseling. The concept of our village plan is really a harm reduction plan. We want to get the most vulnerable off the streets and into a program where they get the shelter and the privacy that they deserve, the human dignity, and at the same time go through an individualized program of training and medical care to help them get ready for more permanent solutions. So we've devised a program, and we've kind of adopted or blended it with the tiny homes movement that's spreading across the country. I've made several trips where I went and visited what other cities have done where they've put up tiny homes. Each community seems to have a little bit different approach. You can tailor it very easily to your own community. Some of them are temporary interim housing like I'm proposing. Some have services, some don't. Ours is based on a housing first principle where we get the most vulnerable off the streets and give them services, both, and we tailor that to the individual needs. Others are aimed at creating tiny homes as permanent housing, and there's even a movement in Eugene, Oregon. They built their first tiny home community as an interim, temporary or transitional community, and it was so successful that they're now building a second to build permanent homes.
What state was that?
That's Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. And so, you know, we've had the opportunity now to take a look at this for a few years and to really kind of perfect the model that we've devised. We've got a lot of good people working with us. I've got an advisory board that's quite extensive that includes a real broad cross-cut of the community. We've got developers that have the expertise of building different types of facilities. We've got architects. We've got attorneys. We've got affordable housing experts. We've got social service providers. WellSpace Health is represented since they're our medical partner.
So you're the idea guy.
So, well, I'm the guy that has to try to pull it all together, and I think we're making some really great progress. We've talked a lot about this with our elected officials in the city and county, and I believe the support is growing for this idea whose time is now. There's a lot of things about this that make it attractive. Recently, the city of Sacramento published a study on how much they spend mitigating homeless issues per year.
What do they mean by mitigating?
Sending police on calls.
That's what I thought.
Sending the fire department on calls.
But also cleaning up.
Cleaning up, doing cleanup over
as well.
Camps along the river, that kind of thing. And the city number was around $13 million a year.
Yeah.
The proposal that I have, we've put together an operating budget. It really depends on the size of the piece of land that we select with the city or county and the number of people we put in there. But let me give you an example. One of the possible pieces of land we looked at leasing from the city is 3.5 acres. That gives us enough room, enough space to do quite a bit. We can build our community center. We can put in a kennel that would be able to take care of the pets during the day while our residents are going to classes, doing job assignments, you know, while their activities for the day are being undertaken. We can put in community gardens. We'd have about 75 cabins and would be able to handle on this particular piece of property up to about 100 people maximum. The interesting thing is the forecasted cost of running that is well under $1 million a year. We're talking closer to maybe $750,000 a year to run that. If you compare that to...
That's for the year?
For a whole year for 100 people. Now,
would those be the same 100 people, or would they transition?
Well, the concept is, again, that we try to target a turnaround of maybe 6 to 8 months and cap it at a year, move people through the program, and get them ready to make more permanent steps into permanent housing, some into jobs, some into permanent supportive housing. In other words, we tailor a program for each individual based on their specific needs.
Because if you don't move them out, then you can't move more people in.
That's right.
And we have, let's see, how many homeless people?
2,400 is a good number that I use because
in Sacramento.
It's a number from the point-in-time counts that Sacramento Steps Forward does every 2 years.
Which we know are an undercount.
It's a large undercount,
Yeah,
but it's a good number
yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of what everybody works with here.
You know, this issue has really exploded, and I myself have been part of the community dinner project that has
Yes.
been feeding people at City Hall for the last year. I was a founding member. I funded it. I support it wholeheartedly. They not only feed the homeless, but then they go in and they advocate. And City Council has really ignored them. And last month, they decided to get in their face, literally. They are at City Hall camping, and it's controversial, and it's ugly, and it's, you know, you have a lot of mentally challenged people that are difficult to look at, to deal with, to talk to. They're loud, obnoxious, and annoying. They need help, and they're showing that. And they're right there in the face of City Hall, and it is working. I cannot tell you how pleased I am with that occupation. I have been down there supporting it as a legal observer, and I know that's not how everybody works. But to me, I've been in this activism business for a while, and we need to be a family. You know, we have the thumb that opposes the pinky. We are not all thumbs. We are not all
That's right.
fingers. We work together, and you have the pressure being put by those brave people down there. And I just want to speak a little bit to that occupation, because I do feel it's a little bit misunderstood. I have been down there in the middle of the night when the police come to invite people to go to warming centers, and those homeless people, they're asleep. They are underneath blankets and tarps. Now, this is not during rain, but just cold. They are warm. The tarp is very warm to be under. And the police come and they wake them up. And they say, do you want to go to a warming center? Those warming centers don't let you sleep. They don't even let you lay down. People can only sit, awake, or stand awake. That's a warming center. So they're waking up people who are warm and asleep and saying, do you want to go to a warming center? And I think the police, they're out there in the cold, and they're cold, and they think that person's cold. They're not. They're under the tarp.
Sure.
And when you wake them up and they come out from under that tarp, then they're cold, and it takes them 30 minutes to warm up again. And this happens a couple of times a night. And so there's this whole misunderstanding about what is really true. And waking people up to go to a warming center when they can't sleep, when they're asleep and warm, is so misguided. So that's one point I want to make. The second point is that the police come down there and they offer housing, temporary housing, shelters, not just warming centers, but shelters. And do you know what these guys say? They say, yeah, I could go there. Yes, there's a spot for me. But we all know that there are 10 people for every spot there. That if I go to that spot, that fixes me. But I'm not here because I want a spot in a shelter. I'm here because there are 10 people for every spot that's in a shelter. That there is, and we're criminalizing people for sleeping. And you can have all these ideas, all of these plans that are wonderful for getting people off the streets, but the fact is they got to sleep somewhere tonight, tomorrow night. Sleeping is a life-sustaining activity. To criminalize people sleeping, not only can they not sleep on the streets, they can't even sleep in a car. They can only sleep in a house. They don't have a house. I mean, this is ridiculous. And so that is why these people are out there. And I think that the coverage so far has not understood the realities of this situation and what these people are out there doing. They're out there fighting for all the homeless people. They're not out there because they're looking for a place to sleep. They're looking for an end to the criminalization.
I agree with that, and I think that one of the biggest problems is a misunderstanding, and we see it in the press and we know it exists in the public, of what do we mean by criminalization of homelessness. Let's face it, we all have a biological need to sleep. We all have a biological need to use a restroom. And if we don't provide alternatives, someplace for people to go, someplace for people to be when they've lost everything,
and we
don't have a
criminalize
home, then in effect, if we tell them it's against the law, we're punishing them for just trying to meet their own life needs that we all have.
And that's where you get criminalization of the
Yes.
homeless. I saw you wanted to pop in there.
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple of points there. Recently, very recently, the Department of Justice put a statement forward.
The Department of
The U.S. Department of
Justice, okay.
put a statement forward in a case called Bell versus City of Boise et al. That opined that sleep is needed by human beings at some place and some time.
Yes.
To deprive people of this sleep is cruel and unusual punishment and a violation of the 8th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
And this is in fact what that occupation is about. It is challenging that law. It is backed up by lawyers who are ready to go to court because of that. So this is a very well thought out. I mean, these guys have been speaking at city council for a year. They have been feeding people every week for a year. They are organized. They are smart. They know what they're doing. Don't dismiss them. These are real people.
Yeah, I'm not connected with the protests. I'm
right.
empathetic.
I understand that. I understand that. And you're the pinky and they're the thumb. Like, we're all on the same hand, but we come at it and we work together.
I'm empathetic with what they are faced with and what they represent, and also by virtue of the First Amendment. It is a protest. Officers are on video saying, okay, well, you're not a protest because you don't have any signs. What is feasible for them to produce? I mean, their sleeping bags are their signs. But what I'm concerned with is the amount of money that the lawsuits will cost the city and the resources that will be diverted because of losing that money.
I understand that, but if the city drops those charges, do those lawsuits then go away?
I believe that they could be settled, yes, if there was a moratorium put on the
the purpose of the laws,
anti-camping laws.
is to stop, is to stop that. So, the city doesn't have to lose money. They are not there to make the city pay. They're there to make the city change. And the only way the city's going to change is if, it's unpopular or expensive or both.
Currently, we have emergency rooms that are overpopulated with people with serious mental illness, SMI is what they abbreviate it, that will come in with mandatory officers waiting alongside them until they're seen. Oftentimes these people will be put on a gurney and stashed in a hallway for 3 days. And sometimes they're only there because they don't want to be out in the cold, but sometimes they have very serious mental issues that they're faced with. And
I thought you were going to make a point there about the cost of that police officer to stand with them, because the cost that we're spending on policing and in courts and in, God forbid, we have settlements. I mean, our city council, they're trying to provide solutions, but they don't seem to understand that criminalization in itself is a horrible problem. Like I said, I've been down there. And to be criminalized, and you can't stop being a criminal. It's like being criminalized because of your skin. It's not something that you control. You have to sleep. And you have to go to the bathroom. And there are no public bathrooms, and businesses aren't going to let you in. So you've got to wing it out. And you could be arrested as a sex offender, and you're peeing and pooping in the streets, and everybody hates you, And consider living a life every day where everybody hates you. I cannot appreciate what kind of burden that is.
I describe the net effect of as being a negative aspect on
Mental
recovery,
yes.
because it's like having a rope ladder where people are cutting individual rungs off or stepping on the fingers of people that are climbing out, trying to achieve a new status of wellness and a rehabilitation towards self-sufficiency.
Here you have
It's
a person.
counterproductive. They don't have the money to pay the fines. They have to do jail time. That works against them for employment and everything. The answer to lighten most of this up is something like the tiny cottage
Also, wait a minute.
micro communities,
Well, let's go
like
to this.
Quixote Village or first step communities.
I want to talk about this. The homeless safe ground, back in the mix for Sacramento. This is in the news today. And yet I see City Council is going to Seattle. Is that right? Seattle?
They've mentioned Seattle.
So they're going to Seattle to see a tent city, but they're not interested in a tent city. They want a small community of 100. We've got 2,500 homeless. 100. They still do not understand.
Well, I think we're making progress. I talked with one of the council members today. We talked about the trip to Seattle, and I suggested to them that I would like to go on that trip along with them because they want to take some service providers, and I'd like them to go to Olympia. And Olympia has a tiny homes community, and I've been up there and I've looked at it. It's very successful. They have some nice gardens. They have 30 cabins right now. It's smaller than
Thank you for that work, because they're saying, we're going to go see a tent city. We don't want a tent city. We want small houses. And I'm like, well, go see a place with small houses. So excellent work.
But one other thing that I wanted to mention to kind of address what I think you're getting at. I've seen many programs that I have great respect come along. Somebody comes up with some funding and we get 20 beds or we get 30 beds, but we've got, by one count, 2,400. By the school county board of education, we've got 12,000 homeless children. So how is it that we're going to make a dent? Well, I don't claim to have the solution, but this community model that we've put together can be replicated. We've purposely built this with the concept of replication. So, for example, if we've got 4 or 5 areas of concern where we've got lots of homeless people in the city and county on the streets, we could, over a period of not too long a time, put together a number of these communities, and we could start to make a dent. And if each community housed up to 100 people...
We have? We have?
And,
so talk about this,
the
please.
graphic that's up there right now is my architect's rendition of the community center itself.
Wow.
Community center would be kind of the heart of the community. It would, in addition to having kitchens and restrooms and showers and laundries, it would have meeting rooms and a medical clinic. I think a medical clinic, and this is where Frank and I started talking to each other so much, is such a necessary component because, number one, we've got people with chronic physical illnesses on the streets, and number two, we've got people with mental health issues that need help or addiction issues.
And so what are we seeing there now?
What you see there is kind of the preliminary floor plan of the community center. The large area that's at the bottom is the community area where we would set it up for dining, probably have a community breakfast and a communal dinner every day, and then lunch would kind of be on individuals. It's hard to see from here, perhaps, but there's also a medical clinic in the top right with
a medical clinic. We don't really care where they are, but you were describing.
It has a series of exam rooms. It has rooms that we can use to do group therapy or individual counseling.
And you said there would be. What about service providers to move them into permanent housing? Would that be there as well?
Yeah, part of the plan that we have is that, let me describe the program, if you will,
Please
that an
do.
individual would do. They don't just move into a cabin. They come in and join the program, and what's offered to them is a series of different services. So they would work with a caseworker to understand their individual needs, and then there'd be programs in addition to the medical, like job readiness training. There might be specific job training. If we had 75 cabins, all those cabins would be off the grid, powered by a little solar array on the top of each cabin, a battery set on the side of the cabin, a battery compartment that would provide lighting, it would provide heat, and it would provide a push and pull fan, I call it, to help control the weather or the temperature inside the cabin.
I got to interrupt you because they keep putting stuff up. So what are we looking at here?
Well, just to finish that last thought, we can train people. If we have solar on every cabin, we can train people how to maintain and install that solar. That's good job training.
It is.
The picture
Fantastic.
that's there is a hypothetical 3.5 acre layout. You see at the very top of the picture a parking lot for people coming in and out. You have the community center that I described,
That
about
big brown.
5,500 square feet, just below that. And then you have a series of small cul-de-sacs, which are really
those
on
gardens?
walking trails where we have the cabins, trying to create community amongst the people living there, the participants. Along the right-hand side of that, there's about a 60-foot barrier to the outside where we'd have community gardens. And up at the top right is a dog kennel and dog park area. We look at each component of the community as an opportunity for people to get job assignments while they're staying with us. So while some people are learning solar installation, some are doing kitchen details, some are doing landscaping, others are running the kennel.
Yeah.
So they're getting experience that can help them when they move
and that
on.
is so, I don't think people understand how devastating it is to be unemployed to your personal self-esteem.
Especially when
To be unuseful, to be useless, to
Right.
be trash.
And you've talked with some of the folks that are there. Some of them have been there for a short time, but others have been there for a long time. It's very hard to come back in. There's part of the training programs we'd have, not just job readiness, but housing readiness, how to get ready to move indoors and how to kind of acclimate yourself back into that type of lifestyle.
Let me underscore here that Steve has got some of the best leadership in Sacramento County in the area of homelessness and health on his board of directors and advisory board. Jonathan Porteous, WellSpace Health, is the one that's proposing
WellSpace Health.
come forward with the clinic. That used to be the effort, that used to be the Aquarian effort years ago. Todd Reiners, and several others. I asked point blank, I showed Senator Steinberg the pictures of Coyote Village that
Put them up there, they're trying to focus on it.
Get the big one.
Okay.
There you go, that's a good one.
that shows their tiny cottages and the extreme beauty that they've done with the work. And I asked him, this is at a forum just before his announcement of his $2.1 billion
Yes.
brainchild. Which
And that's
is
for the state.
Which is totally ingenious. I asked him point blank if the Coyote Village type tiny cottage micro-community model, similar to
what we've seen.
Similar to what we've seen, if that would be acceptable under the proposal.
Did he
under
understand
his
what you were
vision.
asking?
Exactly. Yes, he did. And
Has he seen these drawings?
I sent them to them.
Okay.
Very recently, as a matter of fact, again, because they are coming forth, Senator Steinberg and Jonathan Porteous of WellSpace Health, this Friday, I believe it is, on Studio Sacramento. And they will be talking about issues of homelessness.
What channel is that?
I'm not sure what
you
Studio
sent me
Sacramento
that. Yeah, you
is
sent that
broadcast
to me,
on.
and I didn't know what it was.
Right.
I didn't know what channel it was.
Yeah,
If it's a
that may
6,
be
I don't know.
PBS. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I was wondering about that. But it looked like a great opportunity to see what the minds who are thinking about this, the ones who are going to be making the decisions, where they are leaning. Because you can't do advocacy if you don't know where your target is. You need to work from where they are to where you want them to be. And if you misrepresent where they are, you will have much more difficulty get them to where you want to be.
Yeah, an additional point in his leadership that he's accumulated is Bob Erlingbush, Sacramento Regional Coalition to End Homelessness, the executive director, and also the author of the Homeless Deaths Report. We just had a magnificent article in the Sacramento Bee about Genevieve Lucchese that passed away in the alley behind McDonald's and Bank of America.
Was this the woman that they profiled really quite
extensively?
It's quite a touching.
Yes.
You know, and she was well known, and I think, you know, that is just one of many homeless. I moved into Midtown in July, and my neighbors, they hate the homeless, and I'm like, you don't understand. That's actually your neighbor. Just because they don't have a house,
Correct.
They're your neighbor. They live next to you, and I think there are a lot of people who live downtown who do know, you know, who do care for, you know, specific people that they've made a connection with. I don't think that's that uncommon, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh no, I think it's quite common.
Yes, because we are humans, and it pains me so. Don't do that again. People can't see that. So,
okay.
But we can talk about stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
No. So these are so exciting. This money is coming from the state level, but this $2 billion was separate from yet another pot I heard of, the $2 million pot. There was a little more money.
That is the 7%.
Another opportunity.
That is the 7% that will be used to pay for the bond that, along with enhancements from federal funding, will be
So is that $2 million then the per year on a 10-year $2 billion? Is that where my confusion came? Because it sounded to me like there were two different things. One was a $2 billion level and one was a $2 million level, but I may not have understood it correctly, so I'm asking you.
Okay, it's a little fuzzy right now. They just went ahead and proposed this. This is going to become much more clear in the June budget deliberations, the state budget deliberations. Senator Kevin D. Leon has taken Senator Steinberg's vision, his brainchild, and advanced it as the very first proposal of the year.
You know, I'm really glad.
Underscoring the importance.
I'm really glad that our state leaders are doing this, but as an activist, I would like to know, how do we get involved in the process?
You might consider going on Sacramento Soapbox.
Well, I just feel like we're here in Sacramento, and there's the state capitol building, and it's always been like, gee, I want to know what's going on in there because it affects what happens in my city, and it's right here. I let people stay in my house who come from LA to advocate in the Capitol, and yet the people I know who live here rarely advocate at the Capitol. We have this access, so I think we should be down there. We should be participating in hearings. We should be asking questions. To me, the best way to advocate really is to start with asking questions, to understand what's going on.
I think it's important, and I think there's many types of advocacy. I think, you know, whether it's to go down and attend meetings, whether it's to go to things like the
Hearings.
What's going on outside City Hall right now.
The hearings are nice because those are very informative.
Right. There's many different things. I think getting involved is key. I do think that you had started talking about the protests that are going on outside City Hall, and I think one of the real benefits of that activity is that it draws attention. Now we have a lot of attention in the press, and we have a lot more interest in the solution again. You know, I had heard the number 200 million. There was 200 million that was going to be dedicated towards affordable housing in the state. The problem we have is that how quickly can that happen? We've got people on the streets right now, and we need some solutions. We can't afford to build enough affordable housing.
Which is why those guys are still at City Hall.
Right. And we've got a lot of people on the streets. That's where the First Step Communities proposal comes in, is to try to fill that gap between the lack of enough affordable housing and the need on the streets.
You are in the right place. The first step to that gap, because like I said previously, those people have to sleep tonight.
Right away. Yes.
Tonight, this moment.
Right.
They are sleeping, trying to sleep, looking for a place to sleep. They are breaking the law sleeping right now.
I've had discussions with Ryan Loofborough, who runs Sacramento Steps Forward, and part of what I've said to Ryan is we could dedicate, we'd have to work this out, but we could dedicate a portion of those cottages to emergencies. So when his navigators are out in the neighborhoods of Sacramento and they find somebody in an extremely vulnerable situation, we would have an emergency cabin for them as we tried to get them into some program if we didn't have a vacancy at that time. But I think we could serve not only to have a 6 to 12-month program, but also some emergency.
Let me speak to a minute to my viewers about my personal experience. Having been down at the occupation, I saw what these emergencies look like. There was a man named John. Maybe that was his name. And John doesn't seem to really know when he's cold. So people have to help him be covered. And it has been in the 30s at night and in the 40s during the day. It has been bitterly cold this last month. And John was the person I remember seeing, because he's in this short sleeve shirt and his shirt's hiked up, above his pants, and he has all this bare skin, and I am freezing, and I'm like, oh my goodness. John doesn't know. He doesn't seem to know. And other people have problems where they don't seem to know that they need to urinate. They don't seem to know that, and so there's a problem with putting clothes on this person when they're out there on the streets. Their clothes are soaked with, they don't know that they're going to urinate. They don't know it's coming, and they urinate, and then they need new clothes, and they have no way to wash them. So either they're covered in either they're covered in urine clothes, or at the occupation they were like, I got some new clothes for him, and then I discovered he needed new clothes on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and it's like, that's just not sustainable. So these are the emergencies. People who cannot care for themselves. I saw this more than once.
And there are ways that we can help those people. I mean, before we started First Step Communities, I worked with the Pilgrimage Program, which is a church shelter program that works with 6 Midtown churches. Sometimes when they have a night where they're going to have an overnight at one of the churches, they'll have 200 or more people for dinner and 100 to 150 that spend the night. And the numbers are going up. But in working with them, we found some things we could do to make it just a little bit better, to help people just a little bit more, and it addresses some of the concerns you have. We had, we had an individual, for example, that was incontinent, and it can cause problems both for that person and for others around them. And frankly, we put into our budget just something as simple as adult diapers, having a supply of those, and then getting some counseling for the individual to say it's okay to accept these. It's okay to do this. Simple things like that. We also got... and
I bet this guy could care for himself.
Sure.
He could.
Some help.
Yes.
And to know someone
with
cares.
Training, with support, basically.
Supportive
I mean,
house.
why should he care for himself when there is no way for him to do that?
That's right.
Right? But if there was a support system so that, I can change diapers if I had diapers, if I knew there were going to be diapers for me to change in tomorrow. I mean, I want to do this quote. I want to do this quote here, and this is. Let me find this. I should find this while somebody else is talking. I apologize. This is Karen Larson, Yolo County's mental health director, in this B article, and she says, "These are human beings. These are human rights issues. Why not provide them support so that we don't have to see these things? I don't want to see these things. I want these people cared for." and you have great solutions, but I still feel like we need a tent city. It's not a long-term situation, but we can't keep doing what we're doing. We need a place for people to go while these solutions are being built. We can't just keep arresting them and running from one part of the city to the other, because it is wasting so much money. It is so unhealthy, not just for the people, but for our community. This is how we treat each other. This is the contract we have with each other. This is so important.
I think all the, I'm sorry, Frank, did you want to?
Let me interrupt.
Sure.
Actually, there is a great Huffington Post article, Google it, Cities Reluctant to Use Powerful Law, and put the word homeless in there. It is part of the California Welfare and Institutions Code that there is a law providing for easing of liability and zoning restrictions for declarations of shelter crises. Okay? It absolutely tore my heart out to see the former Youth Authority prison bulldozed to the ground at Folsom Boulevard and Power Inn Road. That was a facility that could have been marvelously used as a hub, central, with transportation provided, doing everything that Professor Waters is talking about.
But I feel like we have other empty buildings. I feel like there's a lot of buildings available.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of them are being used in this development thing, but, along rail yards, there's some positive things I think that are going to be going on over there by Loaves and Fishes. They're rebuilding that area, and there's a lot of affordable housing that they're looking at rebuilding right there. Mm-hmm. I watch at City Council. We're starting to run out of time a little bit. I want to make sure that we covered everything. I know we've covered the things I'm passionate about, and we've covered the houses, and this is such an exciting time. This month, I mean, you look at how things have changed in this nation with gay rights, and you look at how things have changed with marijuana. And right here in Sacramento, boom, we just had a shift. The paradigm we pivoted on homeless in the last month, and it's because of what they're doing. But that didn't happen in isolation. This ground has been plowed and plowed and plowed for years and years and years. Right? And you have been in this work, and you have been in this work. Mm-hmm. And people not here in this studio, Paula Lamazzi and Ryan, they have been in this work. And this is it, and this is the spark, and it is amazing. I'm so excited to see this. I would urge people to go to City Council, mm-hmm. to participate in this, because it is happening right now. This is history in Sacramento.
As far as getting involved, let me underscore, I'm not connected with Professor Waters, our First Step communities. I am fulfilling my obligation as a resident, as a member of the Mental Health Services Act Steering Committee, and let's face it, 3 times I was an appointed public official all at the same time in different areas because of the Mental Health Board and Human Services Coordinating Council and Disability Advisory Commission appointments.
I am honored to have you on the show.
Having to file forms with the Fair Political Practices Commission, a real pain in the rear. But that is how I get involved. We determine the need, sculpt the program, set the specs, and fund these programs to go ahead and provide the solutions. At any rate, I'm a camping enthusiast, and as soon as I feel this is over with, I'm out of here. It's Yosemite and North Coast, and I'm gone.
But wait a minute, Frank. I thought you started that whole conversation with, if you want to get involved, then
join the Mental Health Board, the Human
Board.
Services Coordinating Council, Disability Advisory Commission, the Mental Health Services Act
You're
Steering
going to have to
Committee.
use less words. You're going to have to settle on just a couple of words for peeps.
Google Sacramento County MHSA.
MHSA.
Mental health services.
Because I told people to go down to city council, and I love doing that, but it can be frustrating, and feeding everybody into the ongoing occupation really isn't the right thing. We need people there making deals. Those occupiers, they're doing a fantastic job, but this is when we need the people that are going to sit in the rooms across from city council members. And to do that, you need to be part of an organized force, and you need to have smart leadership. So I agree. We need to tell people how to MHSA, Paula Lamazzi. I mean, there are really good people to do the work that is in. I call it, I've been in the streets, and now I'm looking to go to the meets, going from streets to meets. We need people in the streets, but we need people in the meets, in the meetings, in the rooms, with the people that make those decisions. The people in the street are putting pressure, but we need somebody to implement that. We need a whole body, right? We need all parts.
And that helps push what I'm trying to promote, because I feel that if we want to stop criminalization, the alternative is to provide a place for these people to go. We can't expect the homeless in Sacramento to move down the road to Stockton while Stockton expects them to move to Modesto and so on. We've got to provide a solution. I think, and I'll plug my own website, it's firststepcommunities.org, to take a look at what we're proposing. But we hope that the people that attend city council meetings, that go to the Board of Supervisors meetings, can speak up on behalf of some type of idea like this.
Could you say that again?
Firststepcommunities.org.
Thank you.
We're the capital of California. We can do better. We can set the example for the rest of the state. And that's what we're trying to do, is put a proposal out there that's replicable, not only in our own region, but for anyone else that wants to pick it up and run with it anywhere else.
Right.
Why should Utah show us up? That's
right.
what I want to know.
We can do this, and
we can do this.
We can do it in a way that we spend less money than we're spending now, not making progress.
Utah showed the way that it was far cheaper to go ahead and absolutely house people permanently than it was to pay for all of this ancillary services and costs, the arrests, the jails, the impediments to their self-sufficiency.
You're right.
It just doesn't work. It's insane. This is what the philosophy is called housing first. It's underscored by SAMHSA, the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
You know what? Here's what I want to do.
HUD.
Here's what I want to do. There's a lot more information than we can cover in this show, and we didn't, like these websites for people to clear in. We got your names, we got who you're working with, but we really didn't get websites, and I'm sorry we didn't do that. But we have a Facebook page. I'd like to ask our crew if they can get that up there for us. Our Facebook page is Soapbox Sacramento, and our YouTube page is under the same name, Soapbox Sacramento. But these are places, excellent, excellent. There's our Facebook page. So we are going to look at you. I know you will provide us some more links that we can put for our viewers so that people can follow through on this, because these things are going to take people being involved. And so our YouTube channel, that's it, yay. And our Facebook page is under the same name, Soapbox Sacramento. We've got like maybe 11 likes, so you could be number 12 if you act now.
Good.
We need to get that up. We had a previous page, and we're starting a new page, and we need people showing up and supporting. So we're down to the last minute. If you got anything you got to say in like 10, 20 seconds that you haven't already said, let's hear it.
I'm Frank L. Topping on Facebook. That's Laura Rubalcaba on Facebook. If you want to pull up our pages, or Steve Waters, you'll find this information on all three, I'm sure.
And I got to say, we're looking for a substitute host. You're sounding pretty good there, Frank.
No, thank you.
I'd like to thank our viewers for checking in with us tonight, for watching us, and please stick with us. We're transitioning to a new team, and it's always going to be interesting. Thank you very much, and good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you for having us, Laura.
All right, we're counting. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, the crew, our volunteers. We couldn't do anything without them.
It's pizza time.
It is pizza time.
Fantastic.
It is pizza time, but we're going to sit here because we're going to be seen while they're rolling the credits.